Today I'm going to talk about 10 ways Windows is just better. Let's get into it. So first things first, I love the fact that Windows is so much more accessible to everyone. Now I personally think that everyone should have access to a PC of some sort. Everyone should have access to a computer, have access to the internet. I think it's a very good thing that we have access to it and that everyone can kind of learn stuff off the internet, because the more people that have access to the internet, the smarter we can get. I definitely say that Windows, obviously on the lower spectrum, doesn't run the best, but if you at least have a mid-range computer, that Windows actually runs relatively well. Now, from my experience, I have had low-range Windows computers and I've used other high-range Windows computers. And the one thing I've noticed is the consistency across all the platforms. Everything does work, maybe just a bit slower, but everyone will always have access to the internet as long as it's hooked up and it all runs smoothly. So I definitely think that Windows in that respect is very good. That moves me into the second thing. Customization is a massive part of Windows and it's sort of like Android. You can pretty much do anything you like to it. Now, you can have your taskbar anywhere, you can have the background, anything you like, you can have the different themes, or you can go completely away from stock Windows and change every single different thing yourself. You can have moving backgrounds. You can have the taskbar look completely different. You can have Windows itself look like macOS if you really want to. You can have complete customization of your laptop or PC, and it's honestly a nice thing because we should always have access to our own customization and to make our machines their own personal tool. Now that's definitely a good thing and that can only ever be good. Customization is good and I'm glad to see that Apple are slowly bringing it to macOS. Moving on to the third thing, I definitely noticed that when I switched from Windows to macOS, the lack of support for a lot of apps, there's just scenarios where I need to download a program and I can't download it because it's not available on macOS because of, number one, the ARM architecture, and number two, just because Apple doesn't support it because of security. You can't download it, it just doesn't give you the option. Whereas on Windows, yes, it might be less secure in some ways, but if I know that there's something I want to download and I know that it's not gonna ruin my PC, then I should be allowed to download it. That's what my opinion is, and it annoys me that sometimes I just can't download the things I want to download. That moves me on to the fourth thing, the various configurations of Windows. Now, obviously, this can be seen in multiple different ways. We have laptop form factors, we have PC form factors, we have tablet form factors, but we also have Windows 10, Windows 10 Pro, Windows Home, Windows Enterprise. There are so many different versions of Windows that are used for so many different scenarios. Now, I think this is a good thing, that the software can be separated into multiple different form factors and can be used in multiple different ways. I mean, obviously, schools in the UK use Windows everywhere. It's the easiest way to access a PC other than a Chromebook. And I really do think that Windows in schools is really good because you can have access to more programs, download what you need, but you can also block Windows in certain ways that you just can't in other softwares. So, for example, you can block programs, stop people from opening it, stop certain codes from running. You can literally limit down every single bit of that OS. Compared to Mac OS, you can't really do that as well. My school also had MacBooks in the music rooms and they just were not blocked at all. The internet browsers were free to use and everything was just accessible on the computer. So I definitely do think that if you are, looking for a machine that can be restricted and do what you want, yeah, Windows is definitely the way. But also Windows Home is also the most common version of Windows across everywhere. It's literally open to everyone. It's a simple setup process. And I'd say that Windows is definitely more simple to use than Mac OS. Now, this is controversial, but Windows shows everything in a super easy way to understand. You have your taskbar on the bottom, you have a minimize, an X, and a window, which implies multiple different things of X, close, window, maximize, the little subtract, to lower the window. Now, on macOS, it's obviously the traffic light system, which people sort of understand, but also don't fully get it. I'd say the taskbar, in my opinion, I prefer it on macOS, but I definitely say a lot of people prefer the taskbar on Windows. It's a lot easier, everything's set out a lot easier, and it's also what people are used to, and preference. People prefer the Windows look, and I definitely do get that. That does move me swiftly onto number 5, which is the layout. So what I mean by the layout is, you have your taskbar on the bottom, and you also have your taskbar on the top, as in you have your X, window, and subtract. Now, this is really simple for people to understand. If they maximize a window, not everything disappears like it does on macOS. It doesn't go into full screen mode. What it does is it still lets you have the taskbar on the bottom and just still lets you have a nice big window. Now, this makes it super easy for people to understand, and that is why Windows is definitely on top for accessibility and for people to be able to use, because you can use it so easily. It's so easy to understand. Once you get it, you can literally show someone that has never used a laptop before and they would probably understand it quicker than they would Mac OS. Now, obviously, this is just my opinion. I've been Windows since day one. I used it when Windows XP came out, and I really, really liked it. I was young, I must have been about 5 when it came out, and it was super easy for me to understand. Big buttons, easy to understand, and I really did like that. When you think about Windows, you think about slowing down, you think about everything crashing, you think about everything not being as simple as Mac OS. But I definitely do say that's not always right. Windows can also be super accessible, super easy for people to understand. And I definitely do think that people do give Windows a bit more grief than it should, because it is honestly a really good tool for places like schools, like offices, because it's easy for everyone to understand. Now, this moves me on to number 6. Windows just works with everything. Compared to Mac OS, where accessories have to have certain configurations for Mac, whereas on Windows, everything will just work. If you install a driver, should just work. And most of the time, you don't even need to install drivers. Windows is the most accessible platform for everything. There can be various different niche scenarios that you need to use a certain tool on Windows that just would not work on macOS. For example, in my school, I had a laser cutter, and it used a specific software that you could not get on macOS. Now, that's because Windows is so much easier to code for than Mac OS. Windows is so much more accessible and quick and easy for people to make programs on over Mac. Now, that's just because Mac has so many more security loopholes you have to jump through, and also has just got its own architecture now. It makes it more difficult. A lot of programs still only run on the x86 platform, so it does make it more difficult. But I definitely say that Windows, for using multiple different accessories for multiple different niche scenarios, yeah, Windows is definitely on top for that, and definitely overtakes Mac OS in that way. Now, that moves me on to number 7. The thing that everyone brings up is Windows is ridiculously good for gaming. Its optimization for gaming is just on top compared to Mac OS. You cannot compare Mac OS to Windows when it comes to gaming, and it's just mainly because Windows is being way more optimized for gaming compared to Mac OS. It's not that the hardware isn't there, it's just that Mac OS doesn't really know how to handle gaming as well as Windows, and that is just the honest truth. Windows can run a game and it can put all its resources into that, and it's really, really good for people that have low-end PCs, high-end PCs, mid-range. And look, it brings people into the gaming market and it brings people into the PC space without even having to have a ridiculously powerful PC. It's really good that Windows does have this way of making games run better. I definitely do think that's a really good thing, and it can only be good for the consumer. Moving on to number 8. Now, this is definitely going to be controversial. You get updates for way longer than you do on Mac OS. Now, what I mean by this is, yeah, the updates might not be as big, but you do get security patches. Now, I know everyone hates a Windows update because you can sometimes get the blue screen of death. You can sometimes get it just update midway through whilst you're doing work. But yes, it is important that these updates do happen. It's nice to see that Windows doing these updates, because in the past, Windows has not been very secure. I'd say at this point we're at the most secure bit that Windows has ever been, and it is nice to see that Windows is finally taking up a nice bit of security and trying to protect their consumers. It is good to see, and I am glad that they are pushing out these updates. Number 9. Now, recently, Windows has been doing a lot more intercompatibility with Android, and now that is a really good thing, because obviously on Mac OS we have integration with iPhone. Now on Windows we have more integration with Android. It's a good thing. It means that people that are on Android and have Windows PCs can have a more seamless experience. It's a nice thing. Like on Samsung, if you get a Samsung laptop with Windows on it, you can copy and paste stuff interchangeably between devices. You can have your messages, phone calls, everything come through, and it is really, really nice to have those features being brought to Windows, and for people to get those features. Compared to Mac OS, yeah, it might not run as smooth and it might not be as seamless, but you still do get those features. And I think it's really important that we have all this intercompatibility between devices, because it makes people's lives so much easier. Now, finally, that moves me on to number 10. I like what Windows and Microsoft are doing with AI. They are trying to push it in their software and trying to get people to use it slowly, gradually, people to understand it more. Now, this is a good thing, because AI is gonna be the future. Whether you like it or not, AI is the way forward, and Windows does a way better job at providing you and easing you into AI. It's literally been dotted around everywhere in the software, and Microsoft Edge has it directly built into the web browser now. So a lot more people are going to be using it compared to on Mac OS. There's going to be more people using AI on Windows than there is on Mac. I just think that's my personal opinion, and that is what I think. Now, do I think that Windows is way better than macOS? No. I think both these softwares have their uses, and two different categories of people like using them. And I definitely think that macOS has its uses, maybe so for more professional people that have more, you know, video editing, photo editing jobs, whereas Windows has a ridiculous range of things that people use it for, and it can be optimized to literally anything compared to macOS, and that is a good thing, that people can use the software that they like, that they want, and they can code their programs to how they want them to be. And I just think that people that get hung up about, oh, you're on Windows, you're on Mac, I definitely just think that, you know, at the end of the day, number one, it's people what they've been brought up with, and it's also personal preference and what they use it for. My laptop is a tool as well as a machine. It is ridiculously good for what I use it for. You know, I use it for photo editing, video editing, and that's why macOS is a strong point for me. Now, if I was building a PC, Windows would be the way. There's no way you're building a gaming PC with macOS. It's just not going to happen. So I definitely have my scenarios where I want Windows and my scenarios where I want macOS, especially in different form factors. In a laptop form factor, I definitely say macOS is better, but a desktop form factor, I definitely say that I want a desktop Windows PC, because it's just, you can get way more performance for your money, and I definitely do think that's an amazing thing. Now, if you did enjoy this video, please do like and subscribe, but I just want to say that we have got a really exciting week coming up on the channel. We have got a new PlayStation video coming out this week, and we are also ridiculously close to reaching 200 subscribers. So it would be really appreciated if you could subscribe and you could watch the videos, go back through the catalogue, and if you're new to this channel, go back through all the videos that I have published, go back through, enjoy them, because we're ridiculously close to 200 subscribers. So I do want to get to that 200 subscriber point and keep growing from there. But yeah, there is a really exciting week coming up on the channel, so please do not miss out. It's been Harry. I'm out. Peace.